Okay, let's try again. Take 2. Oh, the joys of live video. Now let's try again. Hello, everybody. I've just had a boo-boo. I just dropped my phone and it went everywhere. So this is take 2. I'm just trying to get it up on here as well. There we go. We are live and we are ready and off we go. Right, so actually we're going to try and talk a little bit quieter today and try not to wake the baby like we did 2 days ago. So he has just gone off to sleep, so hopefully he shall remain asleep. So we're going to talk about today like what is likely the single biggest reason why people remain stuck for a prolonged period of time, and it's probably not what you think it's going to be. And so before we get into that, as I mentioned on Tuesday, David and I are going to launch a podcast, which is very exciting. It's probably about 2 years actually overdue, but it is happening. We are launching it in January, and we are actually taking questions now. So if you have questions for the podcast that you want us to cover, please email podcast@chaselifeconsulting.com. I'll put this also in the comments box here as well, so that you can send any questions in that you want answered in the podcast, or of course we can address them on these Facebook Lives as well. So if I can see a couple of people listening, if you can just let me know that you can hear me, that would be amazing. But let's get cracking. So for those of you who are new to the group, hello and welcome. We've got 40 new members in the group today. Welcome to the Madhouse. We totally tell it how it is, and we are 100% results driven. So that means that I'm sorry, we're not here to make you get excited like a little mouse around cheese. Like, we're actually here to get results. So sometimes that involves us telling you things that are sometimes actually quite difficult messages to deliver. But like I said, we are results driven, and our aim is, of course, to get you over the line and to actually start taking massive action in your life. So without further ado, the single biggest reason that we see why people just stay stuck for so long, and what is keeping them stuck.
Yeah, it's so easy to kind of throw out titles like, this is the biggest reason why, and but it really is, from what we see, this really is the primary deciding factor as to whether somebody ultimately succeeds in overcoming their struggles or not. And it's a concept that we call dissociation. So I will relate all of this to binge eating and emotional eating in a moment, but let me just take a moment to explain what dissociation is. So if you take a memory from the past, it can be either a positive memory or a negative memory, doesn't matter, and you remember that event as though you're actually there, so you re-experience it as though you're inside your body, you're inside the experience in your body, looking out through your own eyes, and it's as though you're actually there, then that makes the emotions that you feel associated with that memory more powerful. Whether those emotions are positive or negative emotions, it amplifies the emotions. If you recall that event from a third person's perspective, this is what we call being disassociated. So the first example is being associated. This example is being disassociated, whereby it's like it's almost like you're observing somebody else. You're now watching yourself in the movie, almost like on a TV screen, as opposed to being inside the movie. That's what we call being disassociated. And it makes the emotions significantly less intense. Whether those emotions are positive emotions or negative emotions, it reduces the intensity of those emotions. Now, people will do this both with the past, with their memories, but also with the future as well. If you have ever said stuff like, I just struggle to see myself X, Y, and Z. Well, the reason being is that you're not actually creating an internal movie in a way that makes it feel realistic. And what we find is that when people get to a hopeless and a helpless point in their struggles, oftentimes they end up basically saying to themselves, not necessarily consciously, but unconsciously, what they end up doing is thinking, well, maybe I'm just stuck with this for the rest of my life, and I've just got to make my peace with that, and I've just got to find a way to cope. And so, go on.
David and I, we kind of go off on these tangents, and I have to almost put my hands up and say, can I speak now? Is this when it basically an emotion becomes so, it becomes the norm, right, to feel this way? And so if you're feeling this way now and something isn't quite right, and your emotional struggles just become the norm, it's not your fault, right? It's people don't realize that they're actually doing this, and it sometimes takes a video like this, or I'm actually going to post an article version of this as well. Hi, Kasia. We're going to post an article version of this as well, where it sometimes takes a discussion like this, and you really looking at yourself and your behaviors really honestly and thinking, wow, actually I do that, and I do struggle emotionally on a daily basis, and it has become my norm. And so just because it's become your norm, it doesn't mean that it can't change, right?
Yeah, so and that's exactly what happens when people start disassociating from the reality of what they're facing. It gets to a point where they're unhappy, but they're not unhappy enough to do anything about it. And
such a dangerous place, right? We see that a lot.
Yeah. And so now just kind of struggle and mediocrity do become the norm, and that kind of becomes a life that you inadvertently end up tolerating. And so the key thing that's going on here is that binge eating is already costing you so much, but the chances are you're not actually connected emotionally with the true intensity and severity of that. And it's costing you, first of all, let's start at the superficial level. It's costing you financially, and that's often something that people don't even realize. Even if it costs you even if you spend say $5 a day on binge foods on average over the year, doesn't sound like a great deal, but over the course of 5 years, that's, I think, somewhere in the region of $9,000.
About 9 to 10 grand.
Yeah, somewhere between 9 and 10 grand.
We're certainly not mathematicians. It's a lot of money.
If you've been struggling with binge eating for 5 years, 10 grand down the drain. And that's money that you will continue to bleed out of your account year on year on year, that you don't fix the problem. And then we've got all manner of other things that it's costing you. It's costing you the ability to be truly present with your loved ones, because now you're caught up inside your own head, worrying about food, worrying about your body, worrying about yourself and your own problems, and you're no longer able to be truly present. Or you're not showing up as the best version of you for your kids or your spouse or your friends or your work. And now everybody's getting a mediocre version of you, a low mood version of you, a low energy version of you, a version of you that's constantly frustrated, overwhelmed, stressed out. And so the people that you love end up being in the firing line. It's costing you your ability to actually enjoy your life. So many people reach out to us, and on the surface it appears that they've got an extraordinary life, right? They've got, they're traveling, they've got a great job, they've got a great family, things appear to be going amazing, but they're not actually able to enjoy any of it, because they're so caught up there, they're battling these constant obsessive thoughts and over-analysing and overwhelm and overthinking food all the time, or worrying about where their next meal is going to come from, worrying about circumstances and environments where they're going to lose control or not have perfect control over everything, wondering if they're doing things right, if they should do something different, blah, blah, blah. This constant like back and forth, second guessing everything inside their mind. They're not actually enjoying this potentially extraordinary life that they already have right in front of them.
And I feel like that's wasting time. And, to me, wasting time is worse than wasting money. Like, money is a replenishable source. Like, finances can be replenished. Like, time can never, ever be replenished. And just on that, Xavier, our son, now is 18 months old. He's going to be 19 months this month, actually. He copies I always knew children copied from a very young age. It was only now that we have a son, and obviously another one on the way, another girl on the way actually, that you realize how much children model your behavior from such a young age. Like, I had no idea. Like, I thought that, maybe like from 2.5 onwards, like people, children would copy. No. Like, from probably certainly at the beginning of the summer, so that would have been June, July time, I started noticing Xavier copying things that we do, whether it's just, brushing teeth, washing hands, the way that we eat, the way that, we ask for things. Like, your children, like if you're struggling with binge and emotional eating, I can guarantee you now, your children are watching you, even if they are very, very young. And I'm not saying this to frighten you, I'm telling you how it is, because we've got a kid and we watch him watch us. And not only that, we've got plenty of clients in the past. In fact, one of our favorite clients, Susie, and she's become such a good friend of ours now. Susie used to say that she thought she did a really good job of like hiding her emotional eating from her husband. But actually her husband already knew. And I can guarantee you, like, if you're in a relationship or, your family will already know that you're struggling. Your husband, your partner will already know that you're struggling. Like, it's not a secret. You think it might be, but it's actually, people do know that you're struggling. They may not know exactly what it is that you're struggling with, but they will certainly know that you're struggling.
Yeah, for sure. So, and Akash has just added a whole bunch of other stuff as well, that, stuff that it's already costing you. So it's already costing so much, and it bleeds into every area of life, and also the things that actually leads to and cause binge eating in the first place, right? Because people fixate on the food, but fundamentally there's a whole bunch of emotional stuff underneath it that is driving the behavior in the first place, right? Perfectionism, overanalyzing, chronic worry, low self-esteem, and these things are going to bleed into every area of your life. Like, binge eating is just one of the symptoms. And that's all it is. It's a symptom of a much deeper issue, and so it's bleeding into your work or your finances. One of the ironic things that so many of our clients tell us is that after they resolve their binge eating issues, their finances significantly improve as well, because they're no longer wasting money, they're no longer shopping emotionally, and
these
so on.
These are all interlinked, aren't they?
So many of these things are interlinked. So it's affecting your finances, your career, it's affecting your relationships. If you're not in a relationship, it's affecting your dating life, or maybe you're not even going out there and dating, and so on and so on. And so it's already costing so much. Now, this is not a comfortable conversation to have, is it? No. And people don't like to have this conversation. But honestly, it's quite possibly one of the most important conversations that you will ever have with anybody, even if it's just with yourself. Because what people tend to do is that it's already costing you something now. It is guaranteed to continue costing you in the future. If I asked you the question, what's going to happen if you never fix this problem? Ever? What's going to happen for you in your life, in every area of your life? And again, a horrible question to ask. This is, one of the reasons why Rachel said what she did at the start, which is, we're not here to sugarcoat things. We're here to get to the honest truth so that you can finally transform yourself and your life forever. We're not here to just be cheerleaders and go, come on, you can do it. Like, let's deal with what actually works and what actually produces results. And this is the place to start.
And it is an uncomfortable conversation. It can be very upsetting conversation to have with yourself. And like, I encourage you to have the guts, the lady balls, and the honesty to have this conversation with yourself. And if you're not, sometimes, like, I think conversations like this do need to be facilitated. What we've been doing what we do for years, and so sometimes, like, it's a case of just asking also the right questions rather than just going blah 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 blah. I'm not listening. I can't hear it. Block, delete, unsubscribe. I can't tell you how many clients like we've had unsubscribe from an emailing list, block us on social media, and then kind of come back and go, well, actually, like, I'm kind of ready to have this like uncomfortable conversation now. And sometimes, like, you've got to be brave and go there, because like anytime you go through personal growth, I don't care what level you're at, whether you're starting at the very beginning, or you've done a lot of personal growth and development, and you've overcome a lot of struggles. The next thing is always so uncomfortable, and it's as they always say, right? The magic happens outside of your comfort zone. It's so true.
Reminds me of Steph. Steph, who ended up becoming one of our
She's awesome.
Yeah, one of our clients who kind of came all the way through to some of our elite programs, and I did this video a couple of years ago now, and it was pretty aggressive. I basically said that counting calories makes you mental, and she said she basically just unsubscribed and unfollowed and then kind of went away and then thought about it in a bit more detail and realised actually you're kind of right, and then came back and that's, sometimes it takes that kind of thing to actually go away and think about the reality of it. But anyway, let's return to this thing about dissociation, because what's going on is that it's already costing you something now. It's already going to cost you something in the future if you never fix the problem. And when people get to that point of hopelessness and helplessness, they then basically say to themselves, well, I'm screwed anyway. There's nothing that I can do about it. So then was that something? Every time.
It's
definitely our loud voices.
It's definitely us. It's waking them up.
Right.
Sorry, I'll be back in a second.
I'll
it's
continue.
Okay. No, you continue.
So I'll have to turn my voice down.
Don't worry.
So what people do is that they disassociate, and so that they don't have to think about it. It's too painful for them to consider the reality of the future that they're faced with, so they don't think about it. And unfortunately, that leads to the inevitable foregone conclusion, which is if you never do anything about it, then you're guaranteed never to fix it. But that whole thing about dissociation is the key thing that causes people to either fully and completely commit to fixing the problem or not. Because when people are disassociated, they basically use softeners. They tell themselves, it's not that bad, it will go away at some point, I'll grow out of it, I'll figure it out on my own in some way. And that then leads them to try Band-Aid solutions, quick fixes, something that's very convenient, very easy, that they can just shoehorn into their already busy schedule without having to change too much, without having to make a scary commitment, without having to make any bold decisions, without having to face the true inner work that's challenging and scary. And unfortunately, when people go for quick, easy Band-Aids, things don't remain the same. They actually become worse. Why? Because now you're accumulating more and more and more evidence of failure, which inevitably fuels the hopeless and helpless state even more. I've tried everything, nothing works for me. So it's important that we get clarity on the beliefs that people allow themselves to go into, because if you've struggled with something for years, even decades, and you're starting to go into that hopeless and helpless mindset, that's not a foregone conclusion, because you can either see failure as meaning that you simply have more to learn, or you can see it as a prediction of the future and that you're doomed to stay this way for the rest of your life. But if you're not aware of what's going on unconsciously, those are the types of generalizations that your brain is going to make, and it's immediately going to start jumping to those conclusions. So it's vital that just because you haven't succeeded at fixing these issues yet, says nothing about you or your capabilities or your future. It says everything about what you've been trying so far to fix it. And if you have stalked us enough, done your homework on us, which I definitely recommend that you should do if you're looking to work with us or anybody, make sure that whoever you work with has a proven track record and that you know what they're about, you know what their messaging is about. So do your homework, but I completely lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
Yeah, on that side note, just whilst David's gathering his thoughts there, one of the things that we've changed about this forum is that it's now set in kind of like a membership, like a private membership area where content is kind of like you can go through it in a flow, so you can read some articles, loads of articles actually on binge and emotional eating from various different perspectives, and there's lots of videos in here as well. So we've tried to make it so that you can just kind of go into flow. But just to kind of back up what David was saying, like whoever you work with, please make sure that they have a proven track record and they have your best interest at heart. And like I said, sometimes that involves having some quite uncomfortable conversations like we're having today. Like, it's messages like this that are actually quite difficult. So for us as coaches to deliver a message like this, because it has to be framed in a way that is nurturing and basically takes you from step A to step B. So that's all I had to say on that.
Let me wrap up what I was saying. So I was just talking about beliefs and...
Sorry, I'm just going to check on Savvy again. I've left him to self-settle and all of that.
The generalizations that we can make, and what can very frequently end up happening is that people look at the past and they go, failure, 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 failure. Oh my God, that must mean that I'm the failure. Well, human beings must be able to get themselves to believe that they can achieve things they've never achieved before. I think I mentioned this on our previous live, right? Otherwise, all of us would be just, still living in caves. We wouldn't have any of the technology, any of the cell phones, or anything that we have today, right? And so, just because you haven't overcome something yet doesn't mean that you can't. And again, going back to you doing your homework on us, you'll see. If you go through enough of our client stories and testimonials, you'll see people who have tried therapy and hypnosis and hypnotherapy and CBT and counselling.
Most of our clients, actually.
And who went on to fully and permanently overcome their issues with what we do. And so, just because you haven't overcome something yet doesn't mean that you can't. And the analogy that I like to use is, it's kind of like for decades you have been trying to fix a car with no tools, no manual, and nobody to help you. What are the chances that you're going to succeed? Of course you never succeeded. But then one day somebody comes along, gives you the appropriate tools, gives you a manual, and stands by your side with an expert eye, somebody who's done it thousands of times, and tells you exactly what to do. Very different result, right? And that's why, you can, because quite often people say stuff like, well, I've been struggling for years and years and years. It's going to take me years and years and years to overcome this. No, it's incredibly fast, and it should be fast when it's done right. And when I say fast, within a matter of weeks. It shouldn't be taking months and years. And so, but again, it's really important that we are aware of how we're generalizing, because of course you never fixed it before. Everything that you've ever tried at best has been a tiny piece of the puzzle. And there's all this stuff over here that was a complete blind spot for you. You weren't even aware of it. You didn't even know how to do it. And at worst, the stuff that you've been trying in the past has actually made your issues worse. So it's really important that we address that, because when people allow themselves to go that route, then that's when they go into the hopeless, helpless mindset. And so it's vital that you absolutely know that you can fully and permanently overcome these issues. And if you haven't done so yet, it doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that there's still something more for you to learn. It just means that there's a blind spot. Because when you remind yourself of that, that is then going to give you permission, you're going to give yourself permission to associate into the reality of what you're faced with. And one of the ironic things when it comes to beliefs, people often have all of these limiting beliefs about, I'm stuck this way for the rest of my life. My parents were overweight. I've been doing it from such an early age. I've tried so many things. Maybe this is just the way I'm meant to be. And then all of a sudden, they associate enough emotional pain and intensity to holding on to the problem that all of a sudden, all of the limiting beliefs they had disappear. Because now you've got a big enough reason. Now, when you fully associate into what it's costing you, it's costing me my health, my relationships, my finances, my career, my ability to provide for my children, to be present for my children actually learning this shit from me. It's costing me this and this and this and this and this. You know what? I cannot and will not go one more day without doing everything, a proper full-on commitment to doing everything to fixing this. I don't have a choice. It's done. I've decided that this is done. It's just a matter of when, not if. When you get to that point, all of a sudden, all of those beliefs that you used to have of, I can't, I've tried everything, it's blah, 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 disappear. But what is the thing that's going to cause you to step into that level of commitment, associating into the real costs that you're faced with right now and faced with in the future if you don't fix this problem. And I know this is a horrible conversation to have. It's not pleasant, but emotional pain is there to serve us if we know how to use it. Most people don't know how to use it, which is why they numb themselves. Most people, they start this conversation and then they go, oh, I can't handle it, oh my God, and then they use food. They stuff themselves with food to numb themselves from that very pain, and then they just get caught in that cycle. Instead, if you give yourself permission to step into the pain and go, you know what, I cannot and will not go one more day in that, tolerating that level of suffering. Because so far you've been suffering, but you've been disassociating from it, which is why you have these brief, it's almost like you're underwater and then you have these brief moments where you come up above the water, you realise the severity of what you're faced with and you go, oh, I can't handle it, and you bury your head again.
But so, actually, it can be, like we said before, right? It can be very straightforward, and you don't need to, some of our clients come to us and they've got like a multitude of things in their life that they want to fix, and actually you don't have to like go through every one and tick them off the list. Like it just happens, and it just happens often. I'm not going to say effortlessly, because that would be a lie. Like it does take obviously a substantial amount of effort, but it does just flow, and these things, do just fall into place.
The solution is simple, but yes, there's some hard work to be done.
Yeah,
just like anything, right? You want personal growth, then you've got to step outside of your comfort zone, and you've got to be prepared to do the hard work. And there are some people who will just prefer to complain about stuff. And actually one of the mechanisms people use is blaming. Even blaming yourself is just as bad as blaming other people. Why? Because blaming yourself is not the same as taking ownership. When you blame yourself, you get to say, oh, I'm so useless, I'm such a screw up, I can't do anything, it's beyond me, I'm just blah, blah, blah. You get to wallow in self-pity. Well, now...
And it gives you an excuse to stay stuck.
Now I have the perfect excuse to stay stuck. I have the perfect excuse not to have to make any scary decisions, not to have to do anything bold and decisive, not to have to do any hard work. I can just wallow in self-pity. So blaming yourself is just the same as blaming other people. That's not taking ownership. Taking ownership recognises it's not my fault that I unconsciously and accidentally developed these things, but I have a choice in what happens next.
It's totally my responsibility.
Yeah, it's totally my responsibility what happens next. I either go all in and do what's required to fix the problem, or I don't. But at least I know I have choice. That's ownership. Anyway.
Awesome. Right, let's wrap this up. I did say that these were going to be kind of like shorter and sweeter, but sometimes they're not always short and sweet. So guys, look, if you want some help, you know where we're at. You send us, either myself or David, a direct message. We are only taking on now 11 clients for the remainder of the year. I'm not going to give you this bullshit spiel of, oh my God, there's 6.5 weeks left of 2019. But it's true. If you want to start 2020 doing whatever training program or fitness program or whatever goals you're setting yourself for 2020, actually do them this year and follow through and set goals that are kind of scary or these big, what we call big, hairy, scary, audacious goals. And that's what they should be. And actually one of the things that we do in Chase Life is a life vision and annual planning. So basically you can set these big scary goals and they're actually just broken down week by week, month by month, and anyone obviously who's, I can see some of you ladies on here who've worked with us at Chase Life, you're all just kicking ass and doing amazing things because of the annual planning that you've done with us. So look, if you do want some help, we've got 11 spots left before the end of the year. Of course, it is assessment. There is an assessment call to make sure that you're a right fit for the program, and of course, we don't even offer places to people who we know with 100% certainty that we can help. So unless we know that we can 100% help you overcome all your struggles and so much more, we won't even offer you a place. And we'll basically point you in a direction, perhaps maybe to somebody who can, or some give you some little bits of homework that you need to do first of all, and then kind of come back to us. So if you want to book a call with us, it's chaselifeintensive.com/call. I've pinned the comments underneath here. Look my tech wizard I'm getting now. I'm getting used to this whole Facebook Live thing. It's only taken me a year, by the way, to get hold of this Facebook Live thing. I've got my little setup here, my tripod, my phone, and my iPad, my laptop here, and we're good to go. Anyway, ladies, if you have any questions, if you want us to cover anything in particular on these Facebook Lives, please send that also to the podcast email, which is podcast@chaselifeconsulting.com. Like I said, we are launching our podcast in January. We're going to start recording in December, which is very exciting. And of course, 11 places left to work with us in Chase Life before the end of the year. So that's chaselifeintensive.com/call. We'll have about a 90-minute call. Usually David who does the calls. And basically what you do on those calls is get really clear on basically what's not working for you right now, and basically create a plan moving forward on what we can do to help you. Anyways, without further ado, ciao from me, ciao from David.
Bye-bye.
And we shall speak to you soon.